Welcome back, dear friends and story lovers. 8. Tonight, we bring you a tale where love is tested, secrets come to light, and fate takes an unexpected turn. Every moment will pull you in deeper, and every choice could change everything.
Tell us
Where you're watching from in the comments, and if this story touches your heart, subscribe, share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Let's dig in, asterisk. The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of the penthouse. Crystal fragments catching the city lights streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Alexander Kane didn't flinch as the expensive Dom Perignon pooled at his feet, staining his Italian leather shoes. 3 years, he said, his voice cutting through the Valentine's night air like a blade. 3 years of this charade, and you still think I give a damn about your feelings? Sophia Winters stood frozen across the lavish dining room, her emerald dress a stark contrast against her pale skin. The table between them was set for two, complete with roses and flickering candles. But the romantic atmosphere felt like a mockery now. Her dark eyes, usually so composed, betrayed a flicker of pain before hardening into familiar steel. "I never asked for your feelings," she replied, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. "Just your signature on the contract renewal." Alexander stepped over the broken glass, his 6-foot frame imposing as he moved toward her. His gray eyes, cold as winter storms, studied her face with the same calculating precision he used in boardroom takeovers. At 34, he was New York's most ruthless CEO, a man who had built an empire on the bones of his enemies' failures. Emotion was a luxury he couldn't afford. "The Winters family owes my company $47 million, he said, stopping. Just close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with whiskey. "Your father's gambling debts don't disappear because you look pretty in designer dresses." Sophia's jaw tightened. She had married him to save her family's legacy, trading her freedom for their financial security. The contract marriage had been clear. 3 years, separate bedrooms, public appearances only. No emotions, no complications. She had agreed because she had no choice, but she had never expected to feel anything for the monster she called husband. "The contract expires at midnight," she said, glancing at the antique clock on the mantel. 11:43:17. "Minutes to decide if you want to extend our arrangement or watch my family's company crumble." "Maybe I enjoy watching things crumble." Alexander's lips curved into a smile that never reached his eyes. "Maybe I've been waiting 3 years to see you beg." The city sprawled below them, a glittering testament to power and ambition. In the distance, fireworks exploded over Central Park, celebrating love while their marriage died a slow, calculated death. Sophia had spent 3 years sleeping in the guest wing, tending charity galas on his arm, playing the perfect wife while secretly gathering information about his business dealings. She had her own secrets, her own reasons for staying close to Alexander Kane. "I won't beg," she said, moving toward the contract on the side table. Her heels clicked against the marble with military precision. "But I will remind you that destroying my family's company means destroying the pharmaceutical research that could save thousands of lives." "Since when do you care about saving lives?" Alexander's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Last I checked, you were more interested in your charity work with children's hospitals." Something flickered in Sophia's expression. It's gone so quickly he almost missed it. Almost. Alexander Kane had built his fortune on reading people, on finding their weaknesses and exploiting them. His wife was hiding something, and he intended to find out what. "Sign the contract, Alexander," Sophia said, her hand hovering over the document. "Or don't. But make your choice now." The clock ticked toward midnight, each second heavy with unspoken threats and buried desires. Alexander studied his wife, this woman who had shared his name, but never his bed, who smiled for cameras but looked at him like he was her worst nightmare. What he didn't know was that Sophia Winters had been planning his downfall since the day she said, "I do." And what she didn't know was that Alexander Kane had been in love with a woman for 15 years. A woman who had saved his life and disappeared without a trace, leaving only a silver locket and the memory of dark eyes that haunted his dreams. The same dark eyes that were staring at him now, challenging him to destroy everything they had built together. The clock struck midnight. Asterisk. Alexander's signature was still wet on the contract when Sophia excused herself to the bathroom. Her composure cracked the moment the door clicked shut behind her, and she braced herself against the marble vanity, fighting the nausea that had been building all evening. 3 more years. 3 more years of this careful dance of pretending she didn't know who he really was. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and typed a single message to an encrypted number. Extension. Granted. Phase 2 begins now. The response came immediately. The children at St. Mary's Hospital are counting on you. Don't forget why you're doing this. Sophia deleted both messages and stared at her reflection. The woman looking back at her was a stranger, pale and hollow-eyed, despite the expensive makeup. She touched the small scar hidden beneath her hairline, a reminder of the night 15 years ago when her life had changed forever. When she returned to the dining room, Alexander was pouring himself another whiskey, the contract nowhere to be seen. He had loosened his tie, and for a moment he looked less like the ruthless businessman and more like the broken 19-year-old she remembered. You're different tonight, she observed, keeping her voice neutral. Alexander turned, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. Different how? Distracted? Usually you enjoy our little power games more than this. Sophia moved to the window, putting distance between them. The city lights blurred as unexpected tears threatened. What's wrong, husband? Having second? Thoughts about keeping me around? Want to know what's wrong? Alexander set down his glass with controlled violence. Today marks 15 years since someone I cared about disappeared from my life. Someone who meant everything to me. Sophia's breath caught, but she kept her back to him. I didn't know the great Alexander Kane was capable of caring about anyone. There was this girl, he continued, his voice softer now, almost vulnerable. I was 19, angry at the world. My father had just died, left me with a failing company and more enemies than friends. I was standing on the roof of our old building, thinking about ending it all. Against her better judgment, Sophia found herself turning to face him.
Alexander
was staring into his whiskey as if it held the answers to questions he'd never voiced. She found me there, he said. This beautiful girl with dark eyes and a voice like silk. She didn't try to talk me down with pretty words or empty promises. She just sat with me until dawn, sharing stories about her dreams of becoming a doctor, of saving children who had no one else to fight for them. Sophia's hand instinctively moved to her throat, where a silver locket had once hung. The same locket Alexander had given her that night, engraved with the words "For my angel." She sounds remarkable, Sophia managed, her voice barely a whisper. She was. Alexander's eyes found hers, and for a moment she saw past the cold facade to the pain beneath. She gave me a reason to live, to fight. Made me promise I would build something worth building. Then she vanished and I never saw her again. People leave, Sophia said, hating how the words felt like glass in her throat. Sometimes they don't. Have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Alexander's voice hardened again, the vulnerable moment passing like a shadow. She chose to abandon me just like everyone else. The irony was suffocating. Sophia wanted to scream to tell him that she hadn't abandoned him by choice, that her father had found out about their meetings and threatened to destroy Alexander's company unless she disappeared, that she had spent 15 years watching him, from a distance, orchestrating their marriage not for her family's debts, but because she needed to get close to him. Because she had discovered that Alexander Kane's pharmaceutical empire was built on stolen research from her father's company, research that was supposed to fund treatments for terminally ill children, children who were dying while Alexander profited from their suffering. Maybe she had her reasons, Sophia said instead. Alexander laughed bitterly. What reasons could justify destroying someone who loved you? The words hung between them like a blade. Sophia realized with devastating clarity that despite everything, despite the lies and manipulation and carefully orchestrated revenge, she was still in love with the boy who had shared his dreams with her on a rooftop 15 years ago, a boy who was now her enemy. Her phone buzzed with another encrypted message. St. Mary's lost another patient today. 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez. The treatment she needed exists, but your husband won't release it without payment.
How many?
More children have to die? Sophia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of every life that hung in the balance. When she opened them, Alexander was watching her with suspicion. "Who keeps texting you?" he asked, moving closer. "Work," she lied smoothly. "The hospital needs me to cover an emergency shift tomorrow." We married. Sophia's blood ran cold. She had been careful, so careful to maintain her cover as the trophy wife with charity interests. But Alexander Kane hadn't built an empire by missing details. "I volunteer," she said. "Pediatric wing." "You knew that." "Did I?" Alexander's voice was silk over steel, "'cause I just had my people run a background check on my darling wife, and there are some interesting gaps in your story." The predator was circling now, and Sophia realized her time was running out. The elevator descended to Alexander's private office in silence, tension crackling between them like electricity before a storm. At 2 a.m., Kane Industries was a monument of glass and steel shrouded in darkness. But Alexander's corner office blazed. With light, Sophia's heels echoed against the marble as he led her inside, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Sit," Alexander commanded, gesturing to the leather chair across from his desk. "I prefer to stand." I said sit. His voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to absolute obedience. Sophia remained standing, tilting her chin defiantly. "What's this about, Alexander? If you wanted to intimidate me, you could have done it at home." Alexander moved too, the wall safe hidden behind a Picasso, his fingers working the combination with practiced ease. "Home?" He laughed coldly. "That penthouse isn't your home, sweetheart. It's a stage, and you've been performing for 3 years. He pulled out a thick manila folder and dropped it onto the mahogany desk with a heavy thud. Photographs spilled across the surface, Sophia entering St. Mary's Hospital through a service entrance. Meeting with Dr. Marcus Webb in shadowy corners, accessing files in the pediatric oncology wing. "Dr. Sophia Winters," Alexander said, his voice deadly quiet. "Graduated summa cum laude from Johns Hopkins, specialized in pediatric oncology. Daughter of Dr. Richard Winters, whose pharmaceutical company I acquired 5 years ago." He picked up one of the photos, studying it. "You didn't marry me to save your family's debts. You married me to steal from me." Sophia's composure cracked. But she held his gaze. "Those children are dying while you hoard treatments that could save them. My treatments, my research, my property. Your father's stolen research?" Sophia shot back, abandoning all pretense. "Richard Winters developed those cancer protocols 20 years ago. Your father destroyed his lab, stole his work, and left him with nothing but debt." Alexander's eyes flashed with fury. "My father built this empire from nothing. Your father was a thief, and you're continuing his legacy." Sophia stepped closer to the desk, her fear replaced by righteous anger. "Do you know how many children have died while you've kept those treatments locked behind patent walls and impossible price points? Business is business." Emma Rodriguez was 7 years old. Sophia's voice broke. "Leukemia. The treatment exists, Alexander. It's sitting in your labs right now, but her parents can't afford the $200,000 price tag."
That's
"Not my problem. She died yesterday." The words hung in the air like a death knell. "While we were playing our marriage games, a little girl died because you value profit over human life." Something flickered across Alexander's face, gone too quickly to interpret. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "You want to know what's funny?" he said, his back still to her. "For 3 years I've been searching for the angel who saved my life. Hiring private investigators, following every lead, spending millions trying to find her." Sophia's breath caught in her throat. "She had this silver locket," Alexander continued, turning slowly to face her. "Simple thing, but she wore it like it meant everything to her. I used to wonder what was inside it." With deliberate precision, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a familiar silver chain. The locket caught the office lights, casting fractured rainbows across the walls. Imagine my surprise when I found this in my wife's jewelry box tonight. Sophia's knees nearly gave out. "Where did you get that?" "The better question is, where did you get it?" Alexander moved around the desk like a predator stalking wounded prey. "'Cause I gave it to a girl named Sophie 15 years ago, a girl who promised she'd never leave me." The name hit her like a physical blow. "Sophie, She had been Sophie then, before her father forced her to legally change her name to Sophia, before he made her disappear to protect his own secrets. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I never left you." Alexander's laugh was hollow, broken. "You married me under false pretenses, stole from my company, and used our bed as a battleground for your revenge. You call that keeping a promise? Call it survival." Tears she'd held back for 3 years finally spilled over. "Do you think I wanted this? You think I enjoyed watching the boy I loved become the man I had to destroy?" The confession shattered something between them. Alexander stopped moving, his gray eyes wide with shock and something that might have been hope. "You loved me?" "I love you still," Sophia said, the truth tearing from her throat like a physical wound. "Even knowing what you've become. Even knowing. You'll probably destroy me for this." Alexander reached for her, his hand hovering inches from her face. "Sophie, my name is Sophia now." She pulled back, wrapping her arms around herself. "Sophie died the night my father made me choose between your life and yours." "What are you talking about?" "My father discovered us meeting on that rooftop. Knew your family, knew about the rivalry between your companies. He said if I didn't disappear, he would make sure your father's company went under completely, that you'd lose everything." Her voice broke. "I couldn't let you suffer because of me." Alexander's face went pale. "So you chose to save me by destroying yourself." "I chose to save you by becoming someone who could fight for what you should have been fighting for all along." Sophia straightened, finding strength in her purpose. "Those children, Alexander, they don't have anyone else." For a long moment, they stared at each other across the space of 15 years and 1,000 betrayals. Then Alexander's phone rang, shattering the moment. He glanced at the caller ID, and his entire demeanor shifted. "I have to take this. Kane." His voice was all business again, but Sophia caught the tremor beneath the surface. "What? When?" A pause. "I'll be right there." He hung up and looked at her with something that might have been regret. "There's been an explosion at the research facility.
Ow.
Someone sabotaged the lab where we keep the pediatric cancer treatments." His eyes narrowed, when inside knowledge of our security systems, Sophia's blood turned to ice. The plan had been to steal samples of the treatments, not destroy them. If the lab was gone, those children had no hope at all. "Alexander, I swear to you I didn't save it." His face was stone again, the vulnerable moment buried beneath years of practiced control. "Security footage will tell me everything I need to know." As he moved toward the door, Sophia realized with dawning horror that someone else was playing. This game, someone who wanted both her and Alexander to lose. The research facility smoldered in the pre-dawn darkness, fire trucks and emergency vehicles creating a chaos of flashing lights and sirens. Alexander stood at the police perimeter, his jaw clenched, as he watched 15 years of research literally go up in smoke. Beside him, Sophia stared at the destruction with mounting horror. "The pediatric wing is completely destroyed," Fire Chief Morrison reported, his soot-stained face grim. "We managed to save the main building, but everything in Lab 7 is gone." "Lab 7, where all the children's cancer treatments were stored?" Sophia felt sick, sir. Detective Sarah Chen approached with a tablet in hand. "We've reviewed the security footage from tonight. You need to see this." Alexander took the tablet, Sophia peering over his shoulder, despite the tension between them. The timestamp showed 11:15 p.m., just after they'd left for the penthouse. A figure in dark clothing moved through the facility with purpose, using key cards to access restricted areas. "Can you enhance the face?" Alexander demanded. "Already did." Chen swiped to the next frame. Dr. Marcus Webb's face filled the screen clear as day. Sophia stumbled backward. "No, that's impossible. You know him?" Alexander's voice was deadly quiet. "He's the head of pediatric oncology at St. Mary's. He's been helping coordinate care for the children who need these treatments." Her mind raced. Marcus would never destroy the very medicines those kids need to survive, wouldn't he? Alexander's gray eyes were cold fury. "Tell me, wife, how exactly did you plan to steal my research? Did Dr. Webb promise to help you duplicate the treatments?" "It wasn't about duplicating anything." Sophia's voice rose in desperation. "We were trying to prove that the patents were fraudulent, that the original research belonged to my father." Marcus has been helping me gather evidence. Alexander handed the tablet back to Detective Chen. I want to know everything about Dr. Marcus Webb. Bank records, phone logs, travel history. Everything. Already on it, sir. Odd. But there's something else. Chen swiped to another screen. Dr. Webb received a wire transfer of $5 million yesterday from Meridian Pharmaceuticals. The name hit Alexander like a physical blow. Sophia saw his face go white. Who's Meridian Pharmaceuticals? She asked. My biggest competitor, Alexander said slowly, run by David Sterling. Your brother, Sophia whispered, pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to fall into place.
Ow.
The hatred in Alexander's eyes was volcanic. Half-brother.
Ow.
And he's been trying to destroy Kane Industries for 20 years. Detective Chen cleared her throat. There's more. We found traces of military-grade explosives. This wasn't some amateur job. Whoever did this had professional training and serious funding. Alexander's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went from white to thunderous. It's David, he answered on speaker. You son of a bitch. David Sterling's cultured voice filled the air, smooth as silk and twice as dangerous.
Hello?
Alex, I see you've discovered my little Valentine's gift. You destroyed treatments that could save children's lives. I liberated treatments that should never have been yours in the first place. David's tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. Dr. Webb has been very helpful in documenting just how much of Kane Industries' research portfolio was stolen from other companies. Starting with the work your father stole from Richard Winters 20 years ago. Sophia's blood ran cold. You've been using me, oh my dear Sophie. Yes, I know exactly who you are. I've been orchestrating this. Reunion for years. Do you really think it was coincidence that your father's debts ended up in Alexander's hands? That you were the perfect solution to save your family? Alexander grabbed Sophia's arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. You're working with him? No. The word tore from her throat. Swear to you, I've never even met him. David's laughter carried through the phone. She's telling the truth, Alex. Sophie has been my unwitting pawn, just like you've been hers. It's really quite poetic. What do you want, David? Justice? Father destroyed my mother's life, stole her research just like he stole from the Winters. Family. Then he had the audacity to leave everything to his precious, legitimate son, while I got nothing. The cultured mask slipped, revealing raw hatred beneath. Kane Industries should have been mine, so you manipulated the people who cared about each other into destroying each other instead of going after me directly, Alexander said. Coward. Strategic. By tomorrow morning, the FDA will receive a complete dossier proving that Kane Industries' most profitable drugs were developed using stolen research. Your stock will crash, your patents will be revoked, and your empire will crumble. Just like you made my mother's company crumble. Sophia looked between the phone and Alexander, understanding dawning with horrible clarity. It's the children at St. Mary's. You never cared about saving them. It's collateral damage, David said dismissively. Though I must admit, using dying children to motivate you was particularly effective. Dr. Webb has been quite useful in keeping you focused on your revenge. Marcus is working for you. Sophia felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Dr. Marcus Webb has been in my employ for 3 years. Every piece of information you shared with him came straight to me. Every plan you made, every secret you discovered. You've been helping me destroy your beloved Alexander all along. Alexander's face was stone, but Sophia could see the pain beneath his control. You used her feelings for me against both of us. Love makes people do stupid things, David agreed. Speaking of which, you have 24 hours to sign over controlling interest in Kane Industries to me, or I release evidence that your wife has been stealing classified research. Industrial espionage carries a 20-year prison sentence. The line went dead. Alexander and Sophia stood in the chaos of emergency lights and smoke, the weight of betrayal crushing down on them. Everything they had fought for, everything they had sacrificed, had been manipulated by a man who cared nothing for the lives hanging in the balance. I'm sorry, Sophia whispered. I'm so sorry, Alexander. I thought I was fighting for those children, but I was just playing into his hands. Alexander looked at her for a long moment, his gray eyes unreadable. You want to save those children? More than anything? And we're going to have to trust each other. He held out his hand. One last time. Sophia stared at his outstretched hand, knowing that taking it would mean choosing love over safety, hope over certainty. She took it. 23 hours later, Alexander Kane stood at the head of the Kane Industries boardroom, facing the most important presentation of his life. Sophia sat in the back corner, her hands folded tightly in her lap, as board members filed in for the emergency meeting. David Sterling entered last, his smile predatory and confident. "You look tired, brother," David said, taking his seat. "Long night destroying evidence?" Alexander didn't respond. Instead, he activated the wall-mounted screens, displaying a photograph that made David's smile falter. Marcus Webb in handcuffs, being led away by federal agents. Dr. Webb proved very talkative once he realized you'd left him to take the fall for the lab explosion, Alexander said calmly. "Amazing how quickly people turn when they discover they're expendable." David's composure cracked slightly. "One corrupt doctor doesn't change anything. I still have enough evidence to destroy you. Do you?" Alexander clicked to the next slide, showing bank records and wire transfers. "'Cause what you have is evidence of fraud, manipulation, and conspiracy to commit industrial espionage. Pointing back to you, can't prove I can prove everything." Sophia stood, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Because I've been recording our conversations for months." She pulled out her phone, pressing play on an audio file. David's voice filled the room, clear and damning. Using dying children to motivate you was particularly effective. Dr. Webb has been quite useful in keeping you focused on your revenge. The board members exchanged shocked glances as David's face went white with rage. "You manipulated me into marriage," Alexander continued, his voice like steel. "You orchestrated my wife's family's financial crisis, knowing she would do anything to save them. You used her love for dying children and her guilt about our past to turn her into a weapon against me. That doesn't change the fact that your company was built on stolen research," David snarled. "Actually, it does." Alexander clicked to another slide showing legal documents. "'Cause as of this morning, Kane Industries is releasing all patents related to pediatric cancer treatments into the public domain. Free for any hospital, any doctor, any research facility to manufacture and distribute." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. David's face twisted with fury. "You'll destroy your own company to spite me? I'll destroy the part of my company that was built on my father's sins," Alexander corrected. "The treatments will be available at cost to any child who needs them, funded by the Kane Foundation." Sophia stared at him, tears streaming down her face. He was sacrificing billions of dollars in potential profit to save the children she had fought for. "The board will never approve this," David said desperately. "You're talking about giving away your most valuable assets?" "The board already approved it." Alexander's smile was sharp as a blade. "In a unanimous vote this morning. It seems they don't appreciate being manipulated by corporate espionage any more than I do." David shot to his feet. "This isn't over." "It is." Detective Chen entered the boardroom with 2 officers. "David Sterling, you're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and industrial espionage." As the officers read David his rights and led him away, Alexander walked to where Sophia sat, tears still flowing freely down her cheeks. "Why?" she whispered. "You could have just let me take the fall, protected your company, and moved on." Alexander knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Because 15 years ago, an angel saved my life by showing me there were things worth fighting for. It just took me too long to remember what those things were." He reached into his jacket and pulled out the silver locket, fastening it gently around her neck. "I had this repaired," he said softly. "The picture inside was damaged, but I managed to save it." Sophia opened the locket with trembling fingers. Inside was a tiny photograph of the 2 of them on that rooftop 15 years ago, young and hopeful, and so deeply in love. "I kept my promise," she said through her tears. "I never really left you, I know." Alexander cupped her face in his hands, wiping away her tears with his thumbs. "And I promise you this, never again. No more lies, no more games, no more letting other people's sins define who we are." "What about us?" Sophia asked. "After everything we've done to each other, everything we've been through, we start over. Alexander's gray eyes, so cold for so many years, were warm with love and hope. We remember who we were before the world tried to break us, and we build something better. He stood, offering her his hand. Marry me, Sophie? Not for contracts or revenge or family debts. Marry me because I love you, and because you're the only person who ever made me want to be better than I am. Sophia looked at his outstretched hand, then at the boardroom around them, filled with the debris of their complicated past. She thought of the children at St. Mary's Hospital who would now have access to life-saving treatments, of the boy and girl who had found each other on a rooftop and lost themselves in the world's cruelty. She took his hand and stood, letting him pull her into his arms. Yes, she whispered against his lips, yes to all of it. As they kissed in that boardroom surrounded by the ashes of their enemies' schemes, Sophia felt something she hadn't experienced in 15 years. Hope. True, honest hope for a future built on love instead of revenge. Outside the windows, New York City glittered in the afternoon sun, full of endless possibilities for two people who had finally found their way back to each other. 6 months later, Dr. Sophia Kane stood in the pediatric wing of St. Mary's Hospital, watching 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez take her first steps after completing her cancer treatment. The little girl ran into her mother's arms, laughing and crying and gloriously. It's beautifully alive. Alexander appeared beside her, slipping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. Any regrets? He asked softly. Sophia leaned back against his chest, watching Emma play with the other children, who were all getting better, all getting the chance to grow up and dream and love. None, she said, turning in his arms to face him. Not a single one. Alexander smiled, the smile she remembered from their rooftop nights, and kissed her forehead. Good, because I have something for you. He pulled out a small wrapped box, his eyes twinkling with mischief. It's not Valentine's Day, and it's not your birthday. And there's no special occasion except that I love you and wanted to give you something. Inside the box was a simple silver ring, engraved with words that made her heart stop. For my angel, who taught me that love is the only thing worth saving. As he slipped it onto her finger beside her wedding band, Sophia realized that some love stories don't end with the first kiss, or even the wedding. Some love stories are about finding each other again and again, through lies and betrayal and forgiveness, until finally you discover that the person you've been searching for has been there all along. I love you, Alexander Kane, she whispered. I love you too, Sophie Winters Kane, he replied, and kissed her as the afternoon sun streamed through the hospital windows. It's illuminating to people who had learned that the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies, it's saving the people who matter most. The end.